It's official. Canada has a new Prime Minister as Mark Carney unveils his team. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
I, Mark Carney, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, King of Canada, his heirs and successors. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I shall be a true and faithful servant to His Majesty King Charles III as a member of His Majesty's Privy Council for Canada. I will, in all things, to be treated, debated, and resolved in Privy Council, faithfully, honestly, and truly declare my mind and my opinion. I shall keep secret all matters committed and revealed to me in this capacity, or that shall be secretly treated of in council. Generally, in all things I shall do as a faithful and true servant ought to do for His Majesty. I, Mark Carney, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
And with that, Mark Carney is Canada's 24th Prime Minister, and we are learning more about who he has chosen to be in his cabinet. Let's get the very latest now from our Parliamentary Bureau Chief, Cormac McSweeney. Hi, Cormac. Yeah, it's great to hear from you. So it's official. The transition is over, and Mark Carney is the new Prime Minister of Canada. Who is on the team?
Well, it's a lot slimmer of an inner circle for Mark Carney over Justin Trudeau's last cabinet. We're down from about 37 cabinet ministers under Trudeau to 23 under Mark Carney. That's excluding Carney as prime minister. Some interesting facts about this. A lot of the key U.S. ministers that the country was relying on heading into this swearing in are still going to be key U.S. ministers. However, a few of them have changed their roles. So Dominic LeBlanc moves from the finance portfolio to the Minister of International Trade, but he remains the Minister for Intergovernmental Affairs. Francois-Philippe Champagne, who was at Industry, is now the Minister of Finance. Anita Anand has moved from Transport into Industry, but Melanie Joly remains as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and David McGuinty remains as the Minister of Public Safety, while Bill Blair is also still Minister of National Defense. And of course, those are all the key files that people will be looking at while dealing with the economic and sovereignty threats coming from U.S. President Donald Trump. We have a few more ministers who are still keeping their roles, such as Jonathan Wilkinson, who's at Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. But another interesting thing, and it's a question for every prime minister when they take over after a leadership race, is how close do you bring in your rivals? And a choice has been made here by Mark Carney. Karina Gould, not picked for this slimmer cabinet. However, Chrystia Freeland has been given a post as the Minister for Transport and Internal Trade. That will be another key issue moving forward, given the fact that, we're really looking at trying to tear down the trade barriers in between provinces. So Freeland has been tapped as a person to take on that role to try and bring together the premiers to agree on bringing down those trade barriers. She's got a great relationship with Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who heads the Council of the Federation at this time. So we'll see how that plays out.
Okay. Who is brand new? Is there anyone here who hasn't been a cabinet minister before?
Yeah, there are a couple of people who are on this list, including we have Joanne Thompson, who's become the Minister of Fisheries. Ariel Kayabaga is the new leader of the government in the House of Commons. Also, Cody Blois, who is a Nova Scotia MP, becomes the Minister of Agriculture, taking over from Lawrence Macaulay, a longtime minister. And Ali Assasi becomes the new Minister of Government for Transformation, Public Services, and Procurement. So those are some of the new faces. Not a lot of new people in. There were a lot of speculation and rumors that potentially he could be bringing in people from outside of government to serve as cabinet roles if they agreed to run in the next election, something that isn't done too often but is allowed under the rules. And the last time it was done was Stephen Harper when he was prime minister. He took in Michael Fortier as a minister, appointed him to the Senate, and then asked him to run in the next election. So it has been done before by a previous government not too long ago, but it's not usually done, and it's something that I guess Mark Carney decided not to do in the end.
The press gallery and news reporters in general have not heard from Mark Carney in almost a week. Is he expected to deliver any remarks today?
Yes, the podium's set up. We're all standing here right now waiting for him to come out after the swearing-in ceremony to ask some questions. Now, something interesting as well, I was told after I arrived here at Rideau Hall that Mark Carney would be making some sort of announcement, and he's having a cabinet meeting right after this swearing-in. So right from here, he goes to a cabinet meeting where they're expected to quote unquote, take immediate action, and show some change. And although we don't know exactly what that announcement may be, I think we can look to his speech after becoming Liberal leader as a possible hint for what it could be. He promised to immediately eliminate the consumer carbon tax and to get rid of the capital gains tax hike. So we'll see whether he follows through on that. A lot of reporters sort of asking questions. Can he do that with just an order in council through his cabinet meeting? Maybe he could possibly suspend that because there was legislation passed and it might require some legislation to remove the carbon tax fully. But we'll see what sort of action he's announcing today and how much he's able to do through just a cabinet decision when it comes to those things, if that is the announcement that he's making today, because we're also expecting a possible federal election to come within days.
Yeah. What's the buzz about that, Cormac? What's the buzz about that finally?
Well, I don't think there were some rumors that potentially it could happen this weekend, but I don't think that that's going to happen with word that his first international trip is coming up in days where he'll be taking off for France and the UK to try and address some matters with some of our other allies outside of the U.S. as we face this threat from the U.S. So we are expecting it within days. There are a lot of signals showing that we will be heading to a federal election soon. As early as next week, I think, is what the expectation is, and likely not heading to the House of Commons on March 24th because Mark Carney doesn't have a seat. There are a lot of risks and problems that come along with that. He may head right to the people to look for a full mandate from voters before trying to reconvene the House of Commons.
All right. Thank you for the update, Cormac McSweeney. Great to hear from you.
Anytime.
That's our parliamentary bureau chief here at News Radio, Cormac McSweeney. Barry McLoughlin, just ahead, our expert in political communications. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Here with our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, Barry McLoughlin, president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. And you can read Barry on his Substack. How are you?
Good. How are you?
You're a Substacker now, Barry. I
love being on Substack. I don't know why I didn't do it before, but it gives you more room to kind of, examine some things rather than a quick soundbite or a quick, 288 characters, whatever. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah. Lots going on.
Mark Carney's, it's Mark Carney's big day at Rideau Hall. He is the prime minister now. There will be a cabinet meeting, according to our bureau chief, Cormac McSweeney. Several notable moves here. Chrystia Freeland's clearly been demoted to Minister of Transport and Internal Trade. Karina Gould didn't make cabinet at all. Guilbeault's out as Environment Minister. But a lot of the key ministers from the Trudeau era are still around, and many of them in the same roles. So what message would you say Mark Carney, what messages is Mark Carney sending with these choices?
Well, as they say in Hollywood, when you give them a script, they'll say, we want the same but different. And that's what's going on here. It's the same but different. So the front lines that are facing the biggest crisis of our generation are pretty well in place, okay? So you're dealing with LeBlanc, you're dealing with Joly, McGuinty, and so on. And that's the team there. Champagne being put in finance was a definitely strong move. He's a very good communicator. And I think that they need him there because a lot of the stuff is going to have dollar bills attached to them. And so that's solid. And then there's these other ones that you kind of forget the moment they're announced. You won't hear much more about them in the future. But they could actually be the future, I mean, if he wins the election. So I think all in all, this is an interim campaign cabinet that could disappear, poof, in 6 weeks. But he needed to show that we're hearing some messages, we're changing as a result. And with the new guy in charge, he's the only unelected member of his cabinet. So he needed to make sure that they all had to be in Parliament.
Okay, I should note for the listeners, in about an hour and 40 minutes from now, at 2 o'clock Eastern time, Pierre Poilievre has scheduled a news conference. The leader of the opposition, leader of the Conservative Party, an election on the horizon. I would suspect, I don't know about you, Barry, you'll probably hear something, meet the new cabinet, same as the old cabinet, something along those lines, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So he's got a busy week ahead of himself before he pulls the plug, and away we go. So they all have to be able, though, to demonstrate that they have the capability to do the tasks they've been given. These are actually very significant responsibilities that you're handed over, and you've got to be so well briefed so quickly because you can't spend even a week or so ducking and dodging the media. So you've got to kind of absolutely get a hold of what the heck you're responsible for. Yeah. I must ask you, Mark Carney is expected to, I should call him Prime Minister Carney, I suppose, after 9 years and 4 months of Prime Minister Trudeau. That will take some getting used to, Prime Minister Carney. But he's been playing hide and seek with the media. He was at the DeFasco steel mill in Hamilton the other day, and the local television station was there trying to get a question out of him. Chased him all the way to the black SUV, and he wouldn't take any questions. I mean, this is the supper hour news in Hamilton. He's not being chased by rebel media or, some independent blogger or something. You're in Hamilton. Why won't you take a question from the top television station in Hamilton? To me, it's not a good look. And this has been an ongoing thing with him, that he has not faced the media. He doesn't take questions from the media. His media strategy seems to be, I'm going to avoid the media, and I want to know what you think about that. Well, being in the media training business, I would not advocate for that. I think he does need media training. Don't forget, he's never been in politics directly before, so facing the availabilities, the scrums, and everything else, he's had no training in this. He needs training in that. How to face the media, how to get your message across, how to be responsive to the questions and move on. That's a skill set that is developed. He could definitely do it, but I don't think he's entirely comfortable there. Secondly, I guess they're adopting the strategy, which can be, if you're really the front runner, then just wait till you have a real announceable, make it, keep the focus on that and move on. But he's not the real front runner. I mean, it's a neck and neck race. He's got to see, he could contrast himself with Pierre Poilievre and his well-known distaste for the media. He could look the opposite, that he's accessible, open, we're transparent government. We're going to be one, and so we want to make sure we're demonstrating that. So he needs to get into gear on that. That cannot be his strategy through the campaign, that's for sure.
Okay, when we come back, what will Barry McLoughlin remember about Justin Trudeau's time as Prime Minister? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Here with Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. So, Justin Trudeau's time as Prime Minister is over. He resigned officially today. 9 years and 130 days, which ranks him 7th on the list of longest-serving prime ministers, just ahead of Brian Mulroney and just behind Stephen Harper. But when you think about it, held the job for longer than a lot of other notables like Louis Saint Laurent and John Diefenbaker and Lester B. Pearson. So long time, lots to think about when you think about Mr. Trudeau's time in office. What will you remember?
Well, I think the style of Justin Trudeau, we've never, since his father's era when, Trudeau mania took hold, we haven't seen that. So I think he absolutely delivered that on the international stage. Everybody around the world knows who Justin Trudeau is. And so he was better loved internationally probably than nationally, except for maybe you could carve out the United States out of that. But basically, it was his approach and style to governing, to leadership. Tremendous virtue signaling all the way through this, the whole woke thing, which kind of embarrassed to even use the word anymore, but really he did transform a number of the elements of that in terms of society, in terms of acceptance, diversity, and so on. And you've got to give him credit for that. He was upfront about it. He didn't duck and dodge and do it in the dark. He did it right out there in front of everybody, showed them what he wanted to do, and did it. So you got to give him credit for that. All of this, of course, led to a very divided nation. That has to be part of it. We're a very divided nation. He did contribute to division. You can't claim that he didn't. And the division ended up imploding on him so that really people wanted him gone. And, to be fair, most prime ministers, if they ever last 10 years, by then everybody wants them out the door. And you mentioned several right there. That's usually what happens because he was a consequential prime minister, and therefore it mattered what he was doing. So I think history will treat him better than current accounts. I think he will be well treated in history, and it wasn't just for legalizing pot and so on, but I think it was because he did take Canada in a different direction. And it was a non-Harper, anti-Harper, what do you want to call it, direction. But he went to minorities. He had 2 minorities in a row and was never able to recover the majority hold on Canadians. So it's a mixed account, I would say that.
Okay. We will have to wrap it up there, Barry McLoughlin. Thank you so much. We're just awaiting some remarks from the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Thank you for today. Right. We'll speak soon. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Rob. You too.
Yeah, that's Barry McLoughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultant. So just an update. The cabinet has all been sworn in now, and the television cameras are showing a shot of the outside, the grounds of Rideau Hall, the residence of the Governor General. There is a podium set up there, and any moment now we do expect to hear some remarks from the new Prime Minister of Canada, Canada's 24th Prime Minister, Mark Carney. We will join that when his speech begins, and we also expect to check in with Tom Korski, who has been minding Ottawa's business. Parliament may be prorogued, but there's actually a lot of government business to report on from Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. So that is all just ahead, including the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour as well. Hope you'll take part in that. Lots to cover today, and hopefully we'll get your opinions on what has been a busy week in news. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
He's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is here, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. How are you today on this big day?
I'm well, thank you, Rob.
That's good. Great to hear from you. So it is Prime Minister Mark Carney now. It is no longer Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. However, this is an interesting story that you have today. How much could former Prime Minister, I'll have to get used to that, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earn from the sale of his personal papers?
To the Federal Archives. It is a real golden handshake, $1 to $2 million. It's a pretty good payday. The National Archives has this mandate, and it is a mandatory program, to collect what they call documents of national importance, and that includes prime ministerial papers. So people might think, well, didn't we already pay for that? Well, maybe,
right.
but it is a sweet deal for former prime ministers. Paul Martin collected $2 million. And Harper was $1.6 million. They are paid for their personal documents. The bitter irony for the taxpayer who always gets the stick, Rob, is you don't even get to read them for 30, 40, 50 years. They remain under seal.
Wow. Don't even get to collect the interest on that. My goodness gracious, isn't that something? I had no idea. You would think maybe it would just be, I don't know, public property in the public domain. I guess I can understand because some of it would be sensitive, keeping it under lock and key for 30 years. But I had no idea that the archives actually paid the prime minister for their private records. That's news to me. That's something else.
And the sealing of the records is epic. Do you know, just literally 2 weeks ago, we finally got cabinet minutes on the Kuwait invasion. This is exactly. This is let alone any private papers of prime ministers in the day. Chrétien, the seal on these records is it's been a complaint from the Access to Information Commissioner, the Information Commissioner, for years. Other countries have automatic disclosure. It had Australia, New Zealand, the United States, United Kingdom, not in Canada, but it's a sweet check for a former prime minister. It's a good deal.
So there's been quite a back and forth this week between this Liberal government and the Parliamentary Budget Office, because the Parliamentary Budget Office is out with a new report about the emissions cap on Canada's oil and gas sector and the impact that it would have on the economy. What does that report say?
It's pretty blood-curdling. It says that there will be job losses, and job losses of a magnitude of 10 times greater or more than what the government estimated. This is an oil and gas emissions cap that has not been finalized. It was to be finalized in regulations this year. And the Department of Environment, in a regulatory notice back in November, figured about 3,400 jobs would be lost in oil and gas. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Office comes along and says, no, it's going to be more like 54,000, more than 10 times the estimate. And this is in an industry that has what? 200,000 direct employees. And according to the Budget Office, you're looking at 54,000 layoffs. It's mammoth.
Yeah. So 1 in 4 jobs would be lost in the oil and gas sector.
Figure. Absolutely, Rob. And Cabinet has already always disputed these figures that are contradictory, but it's not a good look for Cabinet to frankly argue with the accountant. The budget officer has testified numerous times. He said, look, I don't have any skin in this game. I'm just your little bookkeeper. If you want to argue, go ahead, but these are the facts.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Mr. Guilbeault. Mr. Guilbeault was, of course, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change for the latter half of the Trudeau government years. He is no longer the Minister of Environment and Climate Change after today. He has a new role as the Minister of Canadian Culture and Identity. Canadian Culture and Identity. Who do I identify with as a Canadian? Who is my culture aligned with in government? Stephen Guilbeault. That's right, Stephen Guilbeault. But I guess that's probably tied to his time as heritage. You know, he was the heritage minister for a while, so I guess he would know some of the people in the bureaucracy there. Maybe that's why that makes sense, Tom.
He famously, when he was heritage minister the first time, he famously advocated censorship of legal internet content because he said there were people on Twitter who were hurting his feelings and that they were questioning and eroding public trust in federal institutions. Well, Rob, I get up every morning to erode public trust in federal institutions. I thought that was my job, but Steve was very, very upset.
I also think that's probably a lot to do with the future of the CBC. and in particular Radio Canada, French CBC. The government has been very kind to the CBC. And of course, that you have a conservative leader who has vowed to defund the CBC. So it's probably part of that. I wonder what they think in Jasper, however, because he is also going to be the minister responsible for Parks Canada. What do you think?
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? The subject of forest management in the Rocky Mountain Parks, always a lively subject. Parks Canada, by the way, has gone to the end of the earth to this day. We have a big fight with them in our newsroom to get disclosure of their forest management practices in Jasper prior to a disastrous fire that burned a third of the town to the ground. They just don't want to release those figures, Rob.
I would have to think, though, however, now that he is no longer the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and will not be attending all these international conferences, that will actually be good for the planet because, gosh, the guy racked up a lot of air miles as a minister, didn't he, Tom?
Steve never saw a junket that he didn't like. And I mean, from Egypt to Asia, Buenos Aires, you name it, hundreds of thousands of dollars in air travel, tons of emissions. He must have circled the globe at least a half a dozen times. And it was always justified, he said, of course, to go to these climate conferences and talk about the greater good. You know, one trip that he never took, and we always regretted this, Steve Guilbeault had mused about this publicly, when Parliament was out of session 2 winters ago. He said, doggone it, I'm going to take Via Rail across the country in January, just so I can talk up climate change with the yokels. And I always thought it was a shame he didn't have that sensation of sitting on the side track off of the main line in Weyburn and the minus 30. So you'd really get a concept of what fossil fuels are all about.
But you think about this, Stephen Guilbeault as the Minister of the Environment, along with all of his staff, had travel expenses in 1 year of almost $711,000. $711,000. Okay.
Oh, the air miles they logged was absolutely spectacular. Absolutely.
We'll turn our attention to EVs, the EV industrial strategy in this country, and in particular, where one big project in Quebec goes from here. Now that the company behind it is bust. Here with Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Here with Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. What is the outlook for the big EV battery plant project in Quebec, Tom?
Oh, it's dreadful. It's absolutely dismal. It's under management of a bankruptcy trustee after the head office, Northvolt, filed as insolvent in Stockholm. They had filed for bankruptcy and their American subsidiary last November after they had 1,300 to 1,600 layoffs in Sweden. We have $4.3 billion federal dollars invested in this dog. Government of Quebec, $2.9 billion. Absolutely epic. The Prime Minister, in the day when they announced the subsidies in 2023, he said it was going to be fantastic. I quote him accurately. These were going to be the cleanest, most amazing electric vehicle batteries on planet Earth. An absolute fiasco, Rob.
Okay. So what's the government's plan? I mean, is there any way they're going to try and revive this project somehow, find a buyer for it? Just what are they planning on doing here?
This is the desperate plan. In the words of Finance Minister Champagne, they were going to search high and low for new investors. Why? And the reason was when it made no financial sense. As he told reporters last fall, what's important is we managed to get Quebec into the automobile industry, end of quote. That's what this was all about. But with Trump repealing the mandates, the repeal of the $5,000 federal rebates, those are gone. Lobbyists in Canada saying, well, you have to get rid of our mandates. If there's no rebates, it doesn't make any sense. Slowdowns, Ford walking away from F-150 electric pickup production. This just did not work out, Rob.
Okay. And again, That's just one of the projects. There's $50 billion worth of those in the country.
Minimum. And
Right.
you could add another, as much as $90 billion for their scheme of a network of fast charging stations from Atlantic to Pacific. This is a very expensive concept.
Okay. So let's think about this. $42 million drops from the sky onto the lap of the bean counters in the federal government, or politicians in the federal government, to help struggling businesses, especially in this time with so much uncertainty, and the Bank of Canada warning of tough times ahead. Gee, where should we put that money? $42 million. I know. Let's give it to the cannabis industry. Tom, let's give it. I could not believe this. $42 million in assistance to the cannabis industry. What's going on?
Regulatory relief, they call it. Rob, dealers have complained for years that they are subject to a lot of regulations, and they are. However, what's missing is, from the government's calculation, by official estimate, 2/3 of cannabis dealers, distributors, wholesalers, 66%, are tax delinquents. They are not paying their tax. Taxpayers are out over $250 million in unpaid tax. There have been over 90 insolvencies. This was not a success story. This was kind of like an EV plant in Montreal. It kind of went awry.
Right. So they're giving $42 million in regulatory relief.
Absolutely. This is, I mean, you talk to any small business, who doesn't want less paperwork? I mean, there's a cost attributed to it. By the way, that's the government's estimate. That's the health department's estimate of the benefit they are conveying to cannabis dealers. You know, they had said that cannabis legalization would drive the black market away, it would punish organized crime, and it would make a lot of money for taxpayers. None of those things happened. It didn't work, Rob.
Okay. Well, look, great to hear from you today. Hope you enjoy your weekend, Tom. Thank you so much. Great to hear from you.
My pleasure. You as well.
Wonderful work
Thank you,
as
Rob.
always. Yeah, Tom Korski, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter, minding Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad somebody is? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, it's the Friday free-for-all, and that's our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We've been doing that all week. So today, it's your turn. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, lots to choose from. You want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise it here, and we will follow your lead. Whatever it happens to be, we have a phone line for you. We are ready to listen. Our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that to our call screener, and we will make your call a priority. Phone lines are open right now. No wait at all. Jody in Calgary. Hi, Jody.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, Jody. How are you? What's on your mind today?
Well, I think I'm so far I'm pretty happy with Prime Minister Carney. He got rid of Mark Miller, which to me is the greatest move. Because I could not stand Mark Miller's arrogant. Anyway, so to me that's awesome. And Karina Gould, I thought that was a good move too. Like that's another one that I couldn't stand. And so the cabinet situation that so far I'm pretty happy with, except for he's keeping Chrystia Freeland. But anyway, I know they're buddies. So So far I'm pretty happy, and I'm hoping his big announcement that he makes is going to be calling for an election.
Well, I don't think that's going to be the announcement. And according to our correspondent who's there, the scuttlebutt is it'll probably be something about the carbon tax. You know, he's promised to get rid of the carbon tax.
Oh, Oh, that's right. That's right. Because there's supposed to be another percentage on April the 1st, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to go up April 1st to $90, $95 a ton.
Wow.
An
wow.
18% increase, right?
Okay,
so I mean, if you're going into an election campaign,
yeah,
the last thing you want to do is to raise taxes on people if you're plan on triggering an election, right? So
plus, and then plus the tariffs, right? So the tariffs that Trump's
and
doing,
the tariffs, yeah. But with the whole carbon tax thing, I mean, the devil is going to be in the details there.
Oh, definitely.
Because he has said, we have two carbon taxes, right? We have the consumer carbon tax, and then you have the carbon tax on the so-called large emitters. And he has said that he's going to make the large emitters, quote unquote, pay their fair share. He has also said that won't increase costs on you, which would be kind of a neat trick, I suppose. If you could raise taxes on big companies, and the big companies, they're just going to swallow it and not pass those costs along to you. He has also promised some kind of carbon, what is it called? Border adjustment mechanism.
Oh,
a carbon tariff. Right?
He's
a carbon tariff,
wizard, so.
basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you're right. So, I'm hoping that there will be an election in the next couple of months here. I'm hoping.
Well, I don't think you're going to have to wait too long by the sounds of things.
So us Canadians can have our say, have a real election and put somebody in there, instead of him just getting in there, you know what I mean?
Well, right now he doesn't have a mandate from the Canadian people. He has a mandate for the 86% of liberals who voted in the leadership race. That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we need an election. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Let's go to Norman is in Dartmouth. Hello, Norman. You're on the air. What's on your mind today, Norman?
Hey, Rob. Well, Mr. Carney's on my mind, I would think. Okay. He's on everybody's mind, isn't he?
Sure thing, yeah.
I'm just hoping that people actually look into who this guy is, because it kind of scares me, really. I don't think.
Why is that?
Well, I don't think people really know who he is. I mean, he's definitely an environmentalist. I mean, he wants to make Canada clean. He wants to make Canada a clean superpower. I mean, he doesn't believe in gas and oil. He doesn't believe in pipelines. He says, "Well, I'll put a pipeline in, but I won't deal with Quebec." Well, how are you going to?
Well, has he even said anything about pipelines?
Well, he did say that he did make a slight comment that he would look at pipelines, but he
said energy. He said energy corridors is what he said. Energy corridors.
Well, if he thinks that Canada's going to survive off of wind power and solar power and electrical power, I mean, we don't have the population, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the money. I mean, I don't know how he's going to achieve that, honestly, myself. I don't think people know who he is, really. I think he's trying to keep that out of
let's find out who he is, because he is stepping to the microphone now. Norman, this is Canada's 24th Prime Minister, Mark Carney.
I form a government. And it's a solemn duty to serve as Prime Minister at this time of great consequence for our country. The ceremony we just witnessed reflects the wonder of a country built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British. The opening and closing prayers evoke the original stewards of this land. They remind us of the deep roots from which we grow and underscore the values to which we aspire. The office of the Governor-General links us through the Crown and across time to Canada's proud British heritage. Et la cérémonie s'est déroulée dans nos deux langues officielles. Notre identité bilingue nous rend unique, et la langue française enrichit la culture. On these foundations, Canadians have built a dynamic nation that celebrates its diversity, that cares for the vulnerable in society, and that always strives for a better tomorrow. Ce nouveau cabinet est pleinement conscient de nos responsabilités pour renforcer les fondations de notre nation durant cette crise et pour bâtir un Canada encore meilleur. J'ai le plaisir de vous présenter l'équipe extraordinaire et qualifiée qui servira au sein de mon gouvernement et qui défendra les valeurs qui nous tiennent au cœur. Notre gouvernement changera notre façon de travailler, se concentrera sur l'essentiel et adoptera une approche axée sur l'action pour relever les défis devant lesquels nous faisons face. Canada's new government is changing how we work so we can deliver better results faster to all Canadians. We have new ministers with new ideas, ready to respond to new threats and to seize new opportunities. Canada's new government is focused on the things that matter most to Canadians: growing more higher-paying jobs, improving affordability, and making Canada more secure. Canada's new government will be action-oriented, driven by a smaller but highly experienced team made to meet the moment we are in. Our leaner cabinet will focus on two priorities in particular. First, protecting Canadian workers and their families in the face of unjustified foreign trade actions. And second, growing this great country by putting more money in Canadians' pockets, by ensuring that government spends less so Canada can invest more, by building millions of homes, by making Canada a superpower in both conventional and clean energies, by creating new trade corridors with reliable partners, and by forging one Canadian economy out of 13. We will relentlessly pursue this positive agenda because Canadians know that negativity isn't strength. They know that negativity won't pay the rent or the mortgage. The negativity won't bring down the price of groceries. Negativity won't win a trade war. We know that by building together, we can give ourselves far more than anyone else can take away. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Notre pays est Canada fort. Et notre gouvernement est uni et fort. Nous commencerons immédiatement avec notre première réunion du cabinet. Our country is Canada strong. Our government is united and strong. And we will immediately get to work with our first cabinet meeting as soon as I respond to a few of your questions. Thank you very much.
All right, we will be right back. That's Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, with his first speech in that role, and he will be taking some reporters' questions. We will listen to that as well, and if you want to comment on this historic day in Canada, what might be ahead in our politics, feel free. Friday free for all. Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are following a developing news story, the swearing in of the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and the members of his cabinet. And the new Prime Minister is taking some questions from reporters at Rideau Hall, the residence of the Governor General on the grounds of Rideau Hall. Let's listen here.
Question.
Yeah. Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Perry with CBC. Can I ask you what your plans are for the next few weeks? Are you going to be bringing back the House? Are you going to be calling an early election? And if so, when should Canadians expect to go to the polls?
Well, they certainly should expect to go to the polls before November. The news today is behind me. An exceptional group of individuals who are serving Canada, united, focused cabinet, focused on action, focused on the issues for Canadians. We are, as I said a moment ago, we will be going to take some decisions which directly meet some of the objectives I set out in my remarks and we've been discussing. That's the news for today. There will be other news in the coming days with respect to ensuring that we have as strong a mandate that is needed for the time. Thank you.
And when you're in Europe, are you going to be seeking assurances from Canada's allies that this country will never become America's 51st state? And when would it be an appropriate time for you to take that message to the U.S. president?
Well, I've been clear. Personally, I've been clear. The ministers behind me, I think, to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada. Look at the ceremony we just had. You could not have had that ceremony. You would not have that ceremony in America. Look at the cabinet behind me. You would not have that cabinet in America. You do not have that cabinet in America. We are a very fundamentally different country. So irrespective of any issues economically, fundamentally to our core, to our identity, is one reason why we have a minister, and I will thank M. Guilbeault to be our Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture and bringing in all those aspects and reinforcing them. So before we get to the economics of it, we won't be part of it. And when we get to the economics, then the president is a successful business person and deal maker. We're his largest client in so many industries. As the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Industry, M. Leblanc and M. Champagne have made this point. And clients expect respect and working together in a proper commercial way. So the nature of Canada means we won't. The economics means we shouldn't. And what you will see from this government is focusing on building here at home, building with different partners abroad, and that will reinforce the point. It's good. We're doing it for our own reasons, to be clear, for our own people, for the high-paying jobs. But eventually, the truth will out, and the Americans will understand as well. Thank you.
Our allies, sir. Do you
Carney,
want
I don't think we need. I don't
questions.
think we need to hear.
That's Mark. Thanks, Dave. Mark Carney taking some questions from members of the press gallery on the grounds of Rideau Hall after being sworn in as Prime Minister of Canada. Your calls are coming up next. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all. Talkback. As a matter of fact, George calling from Ottawa. You're on the air. George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi, George.
Hey, Mark, I got to tell you, that was one hell of a speech. I mean, I couldn't stop listening. It was just, I'm kidding, obviously.
You riveted?
He introduced his new team, and I looked. I don't see anything new there.
Okay.
It's the same. It's the same old Trudeau team with a new face.
Well, it's 20 of 23. 20 of 23 cabinet ministers served under Trudeau or serving under Carney. You know, some of them have new roles, new portfolios, whatever the case might be. So
yeah, and he sort of touched on Washington, but not really. But don't you think that rather than go to Europe, he should be talking to Donald Trump? Do you not think that is more important to Canadians than whatever it is he's going to do, which he didn't make clear, I don't think, in Europe?
Okay. You don't think a trip to Europe should be his first?
Absolutely not.
Order of business. Okay. All right.
The first order of business right now. The Prime Minister of Canada right now in actions is actually Doug Ford. I mean, he's the only guy, it seems, and Danielle Smith. I got to give her credit too.
Right. So maybe just given the urgency of the matter and the real relationship with the United States, maybe instead of going to Europe, maybe he could convene a First Ministers meeting, for example,
or something like that.
Right.
Traditionally, as you know, whether it's the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of Canada, their first trip is normally to each other's nation.
Well, these are not normal times.
They're certainly not normal times. But still, you don't want to piss off Trump, which that's pretty easy to do anyway. Changes his mind 6 times a day. But it's. But I still think. Let's just put it this way.
Right.
I've never called into a radio talk show before, but the reason why I am right now is because I'm really disappointed with what I saw.
You're disappointed. Okay. You think he's off to a kind of a shaky start. Fair enough, George.
Start. The man is not a leader. He really isn't. He doesn't have charisma. He's an accountant, an aggressive accountant.
He doesn't inspire you. I got you. I got you, George. Well, we'll see how it all plays out during election campaign. He did say, I will say just moments ago, he did say the carbon tax will be gone by the end of the day. They're doing this thing at Rideau Hall, and then they're going to have a cabinet meeting, and I guess there'll be some order in council, and that'll be it for the carbon tax. Rick in Dartmouth, not much time today, Rick, but go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? Look,
good, Rick. Yeah.
The Carney speech, I just want to see an election and let the Canadian people speak on that particular issue. And if Carney is successful, so be it. We lasted through 9 years of Trudeau. This morning, on another subject here, a related subject, Todd Vino had Mark Brewer, who was a regular guest on Todd's show here in Halifax.
Okay.
And he's a political scientist professor at the University of Maine. And he certainly would not be called a Trump supporter in any way, shape, or form, as most political science professors would not be in any way that way. So anyway, his particular thing he said this morning was that we should not worry about Trump trying to take over Canada. It's impossible. So his particular view on that was it's just rhetoric, it's foolishness,
stuff and nonsense. Yeah, I think most people would agree with that, Rick. Thank you. The news is next.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It is our Friday free-for-all Talkback. All the phone lines are available right now, and we'd love to hear from you. We could talk about the politics of the day. We don't have to talk about the politics of the day. We could talk about whatever you want to talk about, okay? 1-833-668-2577. I mean, Trump tariffs, 51st state. I mean, that was another big story this week. The biggest story in the country today, of course, is Carney in the cabinet. Carney in the cabinet. I mean, it is history making. It doesn't come around very often that the country gets a new prime minister. And after more than 9 years, I mean, it's over for the Justin Trudeau era. And the Mark Carney days, I wouldn't call it an era just yet, but the Mark Carney days are just beginning. Sworn in today at Rideau Hall. I mean, what do you think about it all? What do you think about Mark Carney, your new prime minister? Based on what you know about the guy. Are you excited? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Or are you, I don't know, kind of undecided, kind of on the fence, taking a wait-and-see approach? Or, as some people have suggested, do you view Mark Carney as Trudeau 2.0, just an extension of the same sort of government that Canada has had for the last 9 years? I mean, I guess you could think about it this way. I mean, this is one way you could view it, by just about any measure. This is a person with a successful career. Born in the Northwest Territories, goes to public school in Edmonton, manages to parlay that into a scholarship to Harvard, off to Oxford, off to Goldman Sachs, off to the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, the United Nations, corporate boards, all of this stuff. I mean, if it wasn't also political, most people would say, you know what, that guy is a true Canadian success story. He's went from Fort Smith to the Prime Minister's office. A guy who came from humble beginnings in the Canadian North has really made something of himself. The thing is, he's the Prime Minister. So now that makes it entirely political, and some people are not going to be so charitable. Wait till you hear Pierre Poilievre in half an hour from now. But look, soon enough, Mark Carney is going to be out there and he's going to be asking for your vote. And he's going to be trying to convince you that he was made for the moment, and that he's better than the alternative. And the alternative is the Conservative Party and its leader, Pierre Poilievre. Feel free to offer an opinion on that or anything else for that matter, we would love to hear it today. Let's go to Chris, is in Nova Scotia today. Hi, Chris. You're on the air. What's on your mind, Chris?
Hi, how you doing there, Rob?
I'm good, Chris. How are you today?
A lovely day here in Nova Scotia. It's
well, we're starting to get some spring-like weather here, and it's been a long time coming. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Well, we didn't have any winter, so I feel sorry.
Okay, I appreciate the sympathy. Where have you been since November? Because that's when it started snowing here, and it never really stopped until last week. But anyway, Chris, you didn't call to gab about the weather, I don't imagine.
No, sir. Okay. Our new prime minister, he's not really our prime minister. He's an interim prime minister. He has no mandate, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
He hasn't been voted in by the people of Canada.
Not yet.
He's been voted in by a handful of Liberals. That's fine. I mean, they have the right to do that. But until Mark Carney defends his globalist ideals to us,
okay,
and and his Green New Energy deal, which is going to really upset a lot of people out in the Western prairies. He's not my prime minister. He has nothing to do with the prime minister job, and I don't think he should be making any big moves. His going to the Europeans right away is not a good look for him.
Okay. What do you think he should be doing instead? What do you think he should be doing instead?
Settle down.
Settle down. Okay.
Call an election.
Call an election. Okay. All right.
And as far as he claims he wants to distance himself from the Liberal Parliament under Prime Minister Trudeau.
Well, he keeps saying Canada's new government, your new government. This is a new government. Yeah.
Now he's hiring the same old people, and you can't hire the same people and distance yourself from the last regime or the last political party.
Okay.
And I want to ask, where's Pierre or Justin fit into this? I don't think Justin's gone away at all. I think he's still there. He resigned, but now those guys are great buddies. They have a lot of things that they agree on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just the way I see it. He's
okay, that's the way you see it, Chris. That's fair enough. That's fair enough, sir. Thank you for your call today, Chris. Wants an election sooner rather than later. Thinks Mark Carney should seek a mandate from the people, that he only has a mandate from Liberal supporters who voted for him in a leadership race, which is all well and good, although what is happening right now, there's nothing illegitimate about it. Steve in Calgary. Hi, Steve. You're on the air. What's on your mind, Steve?
Well, personally, I'd like to wait till October for the election so we can do an on-the-job evaluation. But the reason I called today is because I'm going through another throwout phase of my life. So in the beginning, it was 8-tracks. Then it was cassettes. Then it was long play vinyl albums in the 90s. But I have about 300 DVDs and CDs that I'm hanging on to. But I haven't played a DVD in 3 years. I'm just wondering, are people hanging on to these? When do we throw this stuff out?
I don't know.
So, do you still have DVDs in your house?
I got DVDs. I still have CDs. Sure. I still have some VHS tapes lying around. No, it's been a long time. I don't even know if I have a DVD player around here somewhere.
Yeah, and what really bothers me is I had kids in the 90s. I had all this Disney stuff, and now they're saying this Disney VHS stuff's worth a fortune.
Oh, really? Maybe.
Well, who's playing VHS Disney stuff?
Yeah.
But
maybe it's
anyways,
a moneymaker.
I remember in the 90s I got rid of all my vinyl, and then vinyl made a comeback. I don't see DVDs coming back, but I got about 300 of them, and they're just taking up space. So I don't even know who I could give them to, but I'm just wondering what people are doing with their CDs and DVDs if they're not playing them.
All right. It's out there as a topic. I don't know how much traction that'll get, but thank you, Steve. Good to hear from you today. That is a totally Friday free-for-all thing. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Friday free-for-all Talkback. Tyler in Halifax. You're on the air, Tyler. What's on your mind today, Tyler?
Hey, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, Tyler. Thank you.
Excellent. When I heard that Justin Trudeau was going to step down, I thought that was pretty sweet. And considering it's springtime now, I'd almost rather go suck on a maple tree with what's going on.
Okay.
Mark Carney is obviously an unelected official. Has really never run for any kind of office. Has never been through any kind of political public voting or anything like that. I think it's kind of absurd over the last few months of Justin Trudeau's leadership, kind of everything that went down with Chrystia Freeland, who was the deputy prime minister, correct?
Yes.
Who, in any case of any kind of an emergency or anything like that, would have been obviously next in line to take over being prime minister. And that whole thing kind of seems engineered. And now, within a day, he's kind of going for the populist thing. They realize their polls are kind of, they're growing favorability in the polls, and now they're saying that the first thing they're going to do is get rid of the carbon tax. Well, was Mark Carney not one of the biggest advocates behind the scenes of
his complaint about but first of all, he said every other country should be following Canada's lead and have a carbon tax like Canada. He complained that countries didn't have carbon taxes, and also complained that where there were carbon taxes, they weren't high enough. Big promoter, big booster of carbon tax.
So he was a massive advocate. So, to have this full swing now, and it's obviously, they did some kind of internal polling or something to say, hey, like this is one of the biggest things going on. And if you look at somebody like Pierre Poilievre, I mean, he's been talking for months and months and months about axe the tax, right? That's the big slogan. And that's been one of the biggest arguments. And that, my question to you, Rob, is should they not acknowledge, like, hey, sorry, I know it's not great for politics, but Pierre Poilievre is right. We should be.
Well, they won't admit that when they say they're getting rid of the carbon tax. What they're saying is, well, it's become too divisive, and the reason why we're getting rid of it is because we're losing the communications battle on that, and we have other ways that we can. We have other ways that it's because of lies and misinformation. In other words, Tyler, you're too stupid to understand that the carbon tax and the rebates on the carbon tax are actually good for you.
Which is absolutely absurd. I mean, if the Canadian people are too stupid to understand something, then they were too stupid to elect that party in the first place. My biggest thing is now that he's prime minister, fine, whatever, we can get into that. But the very first thing they need to do is call an election. It is
again, he says the carbon tax is going to be gone by the end of the day. They're gone. They're going into a cabinet meeting now, and this is what they're going to do. They'll have some kind of order in council, and magically the carbon tax will disappear. But look, it's right on. It's right. It's going to be in the details. What are they going to do now?
Give them a couple of points in the polls, but they have to call an election. That is what
might be
people deserve.
Might be baked in. Okay, thank you, Tyler. I would just say that the devil is in the details. It was in his own policy platform when he was running for the Liberal leadership that he said he would make big polluters pay, quote, their fair share for emissions, suggesting that they don't pay their fair share now. So does that mean he would increase the costs to big businesses in the country for reducing their greenhouse gas emissions? Because that's what it sounds like he plans to do. His policy seems to be, with the whole big emitters carbon tax, that's all based on carbon credits. And his plan is to reduce the number of carbon credits that are available for those companies to buy, which would obviously make those carbon credits more expensive for those companies to buy. And as well, and it's right in his platform, he is promoting something called a carbon border adjustment mechanism, which would be a tariff on imports from countries, he says, with lower environmental standards than our own. So importers of such goods would have to pay a carbon tariff, which would obviously increase the price of whatever that good happens to be. Is this really a great time to be imposing higher costs on businesses and more tariffs? Tariffs that Canadians will pay in the end? The devil is in the details when Mark Carney says he's going to axe the tax. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback, Friday Free For All. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Kyle in Listowel is on the Friday Free For All Talkback. Go ahead, Kyle.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Kyle. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
My mind is VHS players.
VHS players, yeah. Okay. All right.
I still have mine.
You do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. We still use ours probably once a year. I also have all my Disney VHSs, so I call that my Disney Plus because I don't have to pay for a monthly subscription or anything like that because I still have all the original Disney tapes on VHS. So still works.
Okay.
I mean,
how's the tracking on your VHS machine? Is the tracking still working? You still have the tracking? Is that okay?
It's still an HD of the 90s. Like it still works like no problem.
Wow.
Like now I have to have two VHSs, one to rewind and one to play. But I mean, those are first world problems. Like they don't really bother me, right? I don't have a DVD player anymore, but I still have all my VHS collections. I'm never going to get rid of them. And if somebody says to me they're worth a lot of money, I'm not going to still get rid of them. I still have my dad's record collection from when he was at university, and those I'm never going to get rid of because to me, money cannot replace the value of those that they have in the family, right? So,
vinyl is making a comeback now. Vinyl's making a comeback. People like vinyl again. They like vinyl records. Right?
It's expensive. Have you been to the store to see how much they are?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
But there's nothing better than listening to some Toto or Chicago or Eagles or whatever on vinyl, like just coming back, cracking open a cold one, sitting on the deck, right? But yeah, I just wanted to say that, man. So the guy that says, VHS players, who has one? I'm a millennial. I still got one, so I'm putting it out there. Thanks, Rob, and have a great weekend, my friend.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to Jeff in Kitchener. You're on the air, Jeff, on the Friday Free For All. What's on your mind, Jeff?
Expropriation. Particularly in Ontario, the Wilmot Township.
Right.
They're taking 770 acres for a potential industrial site.
Yeah.
I may have two ideas that might help. One is mineral rights. Western Ontario, the landowners more than likely own the mineral rights within that land, and groundwater, which Wilmot has underneath that potential site, can be included within that mineral rights. So it may help. One avenue. Unfortunately, in Canada, you're only given 21 days to say no to expropriation.
That's
after
it?
they give you the notice. So wow. Yeah, I thought that was cruel.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And another thing is there was expropriation done in 1985 close by on the Grand River. They wanted to put a dam on the Grand River, which is a fairly big river. And there was a lot of people that lost their farms and homes for no reason because it never came to fruition, or whatever the word would be. It never came to be. And so what happened was this one gentleman went to court and told the judge, when is this going to happen? And the judge asked the Crown, when is this going to happen? The Crown didn't know. And the judge said, you can keep your home and your land. So if they don't know when this industry is going to be built, that could be in favor for the landowners.
Okay. I've only been following that issue on the periphery. I'm not intimately involved in it. I'm not following the day-to-day developments of it. So
the land that's disappearing all over Canada, especially Ontario. I'm taking this from AI on the computer, but it says 319 acres of farmland every day disappear. That's just in Ontario. That's disappointing.
All right. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Yeah. Thanks for having your say on that particular local issue for our listeners in Kitchener today. That's hour one of the Friday Free for All Talkback. Join us for the second hour coming up right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of the Talkback, our final hour of the week around here. So we're wide open on topics. We'd love to hear from you. I think one of the more notable moves from Mark Carney in the cabinet announcement today is this move of Stephen Guilbeault, professional environmental protester who somehow rose through the political ranks to become the Minister of the Environment, guy who has never owned a car and really doesn't think much of you if you own a car. So, I mean, the news leaked out yesterday, Guilbeault lost the primo gig as the Environment Minister, and there are probably a few smiling faces across Canada upon hearing that news. But now, I think given what's leaked out, I think you should hold your applause, especially those of you in Atlantic Canada and in Western Canada who think a project like an Energy East pipeline might be in Canada's best interest right now, getting Alberta's oil to Atlantic Canada, because, the news out of the day about Guilbeault, I think it should end any speculation that as long as this person, Mark Carney, is Prime Minister of Canada, that project's ever going to see the light of day. Not only is Stephen Guilbeault going to be the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, but Mark Carney has made Stephen Guilbeault his Quebec lieutenant. So that makes Stephen Guilbeault Canada's most important cabinet minister in Quebec. Now, given everything we know about Stephen Guilbeault, what he thinks about fossil fuels, what he thinks about pipelines, do you really think, as the top federal cabinet minister for Quebec, that there's ever going to be a pipeline through Quebec? I would say any hope of the resurrection of that project, it's been premature. You already had the Bloc coming out firmly against that pipeline project. Not a big surprise given the background of the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Blanchette. There was a time when he was the environment minister in Quebec, when the Parti Québécois was in government in Quebec under Marois. So, I mean, he's every bit as radical on the environment as Guilbeault is. And now Guilbeault is there. And I can tell you one thing he's not going to be doing as the Liberals look to hold all the seats they have in Quebec and make sure there's no bloc surge in Quebec. Stephen Guilbeault is not going to be going across Quebec as some kind of missionary for an oil pipeline from Alberta to New Brunswick that crosses through Quebec. Hell will freeze over and pigs will fly before that ever happens. So for those of you who are hoping, well, maybe a new Liberal government under a new prime minister might sing a different tune on an east-west pipeline, it sounds like the same old song to me. Kind of a disappointment, in my own opinion. 1-833-668-2577 to Chris in Halifax. Hello, Chris. You're on the air. Thanks for waiting.
That's no problem. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with you, but I heard through the grapevine that Pierre Poilievre has just gotten a new pet, and I understand it's a pig with wings. So maybe it's not too late.
Okay, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? A pig with wings? What do you mean?
Well, you want to see one fly in order to get the pipeline from west to east. And
I see. Okay, all right. Okay, so you still have confidence in Poilievre's political outlook?
I have confidence in Poilievre, perhaps because I have absolutely no confidence in Carney or the Liberals. If I ever did have any, it's gone over the last nine and a half years. And Quebec can go on all they want about we don't want a pipeline. They've already got 2 friggin' pipelines. One of them's the Enbridge 9 that goes directly to Montreal. So they got their supply to the refineries there. They've got that, which they don't talk about that, do they? Let's see them put their money where their mouth is and say, okay, we're going to shut off this pipeline. We're so anti-gas and oil. We're going to shut the pipeline off. Never happened.
Okay, good point.
I agree with one of your other callers who said that he didn't feel that Carney came across as a leader. I listened to his speech, and I've watched some stuff. Obviously, you can probably tell by now, I'm certainly not a Liberal fan and not a Carney fan. But I have listened to him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I like to hear both sides of the story, and I agree.
Sure.
I don't think he's much of a leader. It doesn't seem to be that way. And about the carbon tax, I agree with everything you said, and it's documented that he's going to bring in these other taxes, and he's hoping that Canadians are too stupid to see through or won't take the time to investigate things, read up on stuff, and see through all the smoke and mirrors on this stuff. People, the tariffs are a tax. I don't care how you want to cut it. It's a tax that you are going to pay, no matter who pays it initially, whether it's someone importing something from the States and a retaliatory tariff is on it, you're going to end up paying, because business didn't get to be successful business by hoarding up all the increases in costs for themselves and not passing it along. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. Rob, you mentioned earlier that you think that Carney may be making an announcement on the carbon tax this afternoon. I didn't hear that.
He said during his news conference, they asked him, when are you going to get rid of the carbon tax? And he said, you can ask me about it by the end of the day.
Okay, good. Now, my anticipation is that he's just going to pause the April 1st supposed increase. My understanding with Poilievre and axe the tax is that he's going to remove the consumer carbon tax on the items that it's placed on now, so we won't have it anymore. Is your understanding the same as that?
Well, let's listen to Mark Carney. Let's hear from the man himself, because he was asked the question. David's got the audio here from his news conference today.
April 1st is fast approaching, the date the consumer carbon tax is set to increase once again. You've talked about getting rid of it. How are you going to do it in the next 2 weeks?
Your question, how are we going to do it by the end of the day? That's a great question. And we'll come right back to you on that following the cabinet meeting.
She says it's going to be gone by the end of business today.
Well, let's wait and see, because I think we should watch what he does more than what he actually says. But my understanding, more importantly, was that with Poilievre, he wouldn't be, if he were Prime Minister today, that he wasn't just going to stop the increase from April 1st. He's going to remove the existing carbon tax we already pay here in Atlantic Canada, for example, on gasoline and that sort of thing. That's what my understanding from Poilievre is. Maybe I'm
okay. Well, in Atlantic Canada, you have the carve out anyway. You have a carve out on the carbon tax
we
for
got
3 years,
different
right?
going on there, but anyway.
Do you think Pierre Poilievre, when it comes to axing the tax, do you think Pierre Poilievre is more credible than Mark Carney is?
Absolutely. I mean,
all right. Okay, fair enough. I got to run, Chris. I got to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for your call. And we are underway. Hour number 2, Talkback Friday, free for all, open line, open topic. Join the discussion at 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, let's go to the land of the new emergency powers, British Columbia. Peter is on the line from Langley. How are you today, Peter?
I'm doing okay. Thank you.
That's good, Peter. Good to hear from you.
I'm wondering if you this morning. Hello?
Yep. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead, Peter. Yep.
I'm wondering if you did your prayers this morning to thank God that Trudeau is gone.
No, I did not say any little prayer that Mr. Trudeau is gone. No. I just wish him well in his. I just wish him well in his post-political life. I do wonder what he's going to do now.
Yeah. Well, I don't wish him well. I think he's left this country in a huge mess. It's an unbelievable mess, and he's done this last couple weeks or last week or whatever. He's really stuck it to Canadians. He spent, as far as I know, a couple things. One is that he spent $8.5 billion for some kind of indigenous thing, some dumped us with an extra $8.5 billion in debt, and he's
I don't know anything about that.
He's appointed quite a few judges. I think 6 or more judges.
Well, we do need judges. I mean, it's about time he got on to appointing judges. I mean, we've had some pretty serious criminal cases tossed out of court because there haven't been enough judges to hear the cases. So, if it's one thing we do need in this country, it's judges. But, when it comes to the laundry list of appointments that he's made, the judges are the least of my concern. It's all the plum gigs to all the boards and agencies that he has made. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of appointments to boards and agencies. I mean, it's really quite something.
Yeah, fair enough. But what I was thinking is I doubt those judges are going to be impartial, and I think they're going to be a big supporters of anyone that's anti-oil pipeline. So my final thing I'd like to say is that I think if anybody wants payback for things that Trudeau has done, I think the next major oil pipeline that we build, we should call it the Trudeau line.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, look. Okay, Peter. Thank you for your call. I would just point out, Peter's calling from British Columbia. I want you to pay attention to what is going on in BC right now. You have the left-wing NDP premier in British Columbia. I mean, you read Von Palmer's column in the Vancouver Sun today, recommended reading, a great breakdown of what David Eby's about to do. His government has tabled a bill that gives him, the premier, and his justice minister emergency powers that he insists are needed because of the threat posed by Donald Trump. And Von Palmer has been covering BC politics for 40 years, says he's never seen anything like it since the War Measures Act. I mean, the War Measures Act, for crying out loud, when we had soldiers in the streets. Listen, this is in the Vancouver Sun today. Quote, the bill would give the NDP cabinet the power to make regulations broadly supporting the economy of BC and Canada, which might well cover darn near anything that popped into the mind of Eby or his ministers. There's an open-ended clause that would allow the cabinet to make regulations respecting the collection or disclosure of information, including personal information, for the purposes of the act. The cabinet is further empowered to sign orders addressing challenges or even anticipated challenges arising from the actions of a foreign jurisdiction. Anticipated by whom? Eby was asked at one point. He referred the question to the Attorney General. As for any alleged guardrails, the legislation includes a half a dozen or so override clauses. A newly drafted cabinet order would prevail over any existing law, regulation, or policy. This is serious business. You need to pay attention to this. It's going to be in place for the next 2 years. So what does that mean? Why is it important? It doesn't mean the BC legislature is prorogued like the parliament is in Ottawa. But it means for the next 2 years, David Eby, the premier, can basically make any decision he wants, as long as he says it's about the economy. And he never has to have a debate, and he never has to have a vote in the legislature. All he has to do is say, I'm doing this because of Donald Trump. And there's nothing anyone can do about it. Now, you might say, well, that's just a BC thing. Well, I would caution you, it may start out there, doesn't mean it's going to end there. Now, I couldn't see Danielle Smith in Alberta doing something like this, but you never know. I could totally see Doug Ford thinking, that's a great idea. I should have emergency powers, because he doesn't have much use for the legislature anyway. And I could totally see it being popular in Quebec. I mean, gosh, during the pandemic, we had to obey a curfew in Quebec. We're allowed out of the house after 8 o'clock. And what if Mark Carney thought, hey, that's a great idea? Our new government should pass a similar type of bill. And I'll call the shots, and only I'll call the shots. And all I'll need to say is, I'm doing it because of Trump. No debates, no votes, no questions, no hearings, no committee meetings, no nothing. And so it begins. Some might say. Governments using the threat of tariffs and Trump to grant themselves extraordinary powers and limit the power of a duly elected parliament. I would advise everyone to keep an eye on that. It's just British Columbia for now. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Anchor in Calgary on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi there. Hi, Anchor.
Hi, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I was just writing my notes.
Okay.
Rob, I have a few things on my mind as a small business owner in Calgary.
Okay.
You can appreciate these are very anxious times. On one hand, we're all, everybody, especially on media and all that, and billionaires, they're touting from the rooftop, elbows up, and, support local. On the other hand, do we really support local, or is it just a nice tagline that makes us feel good? Look at the procurement policies within the government, procurement policies within large companies, or any other company, or within government agencies. They put so many hurdles on for local businesses to compete. Banks, they all want our business, yet you go to a bank, oh no, you're not nationwide. Really, for small contracts, do you really need nationwide? So, I've got too many things on my mind. Interprovincial trade, We keep talking about Trump and tariff. Come on, man.
Sure. Yeah.
He was elected by Americans for America.
Right.
It's not about Americans. It's about him and what he thinks, as an elected official, he's got the mandate in his mind. He will do what is best for them. We have to appreciate that. Who is looking out for Canada, though? Who do we have here?
Well, on internal trade, you ask about internal trade. That's going to be Chrystia Freeland now.
Yeah, right. We've seen how she works, and then they all liberals. My worry is just this. I saw an ad from them recently, and I'm not a big fan of Pierre Poilievre as well, but unluckily we don't have much choice, either him or Mark Carney. But the ad basically shows him as the mini Trump, and they have side-by-side comparison of Trump, how he deals with it, and how Pierre Poilievre is. And he calls names as well, carbon tax this, Maserati this. He's not doing himself a favor. I think my worry is maybe in Alberta we're living in some sort of a bubble. My worry is, are we going to see a repeat? I hope to God that we don't get the Liberals back.
You think the Poilievre team needs to sound more mature?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it.
Okay. No, David's got some examples. In fact, I asked David to isolate some examples. Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Everything is broken.
Everything is broken. Fake
that's
news.
A liberal attack.
Fake news. The left-wing censorship regime.
Their woke censorship ideology.
Defeating the radical left.
Radical, leftist, authoritarian.
Yeah, that's a liberal attack ad. That's what you're talking about, Anchor? Something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Sometimes I wonder, do my vote even count in Alberta? I mean, on one hand, I know it's a generational election. We need to vote, and I'm all for that. But really, it all happens. What decides is Quebec, Ontario, maybe BC. In all three, we know which side they lean on. My real worry is just that we're gonna let this thing slide by.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Abacus data has kind of been the outlier recently, with still showing a big lead for the Conservatives, 10-point lead, but even that's narrowed now down to, I think, 4 points according to the latest Abacus poll. 34% he has for the Liberals. They won the last election with 33%.
something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And down the stretch they come. For the Friday free-for-all Talkback, lots of time to fit you in, though, like Sean in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Sean. You're on the air. What's on your mind today, Sean?
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
All right, thanks. Yeah, I was thinking about something that somebody said about Mark Carney earlier, and I hear it all the time from people of a certain political spectrum. They said he was a globalist. And I often wonder, do these people actually know what globalists are?
Okay, what's a globalist?
A globalist is somebody who views the larger global context. When they look at Canada, they look at they look at Canada in terms of what's happening around the world. They look at trade. They look at that at political context. Basically, what's happening in the world. Like, you can't look at Canada just as a standalone country. You have to look at what's going on with China, with Russia.
But people use the term globalist to refer to Mark Carney. Is that what you think they're talking about, though?
Well, no. What they are talking about is a term that was popularized by a talk show host in the United States. It was Alex Jones.
Okay.
Alex Jones, he popularized a term, the globalists.
Right. Okay. Oh, fair enough.
It
Okay.
what he called the New World Order and the Deep State. And it's a term used by far-right conspiracy theorists. It's been associated with anti-Semitism and a whole lot of very unpleasant connotations.
Yes, I did know that. I did know that. But I think when people are saying, well, he's a globalist, I think what they're expressing concern about is surrendering certain aspects of sovereignty, a nation's sovereignty, right?
But that's not really what's happening, and I don't think they understand the bigger picture. It's like you can't, like, Canada cannot be run in a vacuum. We, like, when they say surrender sovereignty, when you enter into agreement, the most sovereignty that we have ever surrendered in our life is to the Americans. We have had to compromise to the Americans more than any other country. And yet that's the very same country. And whenever I hear all these apologists for Trump, that makes me sick.
Okay. Well, I'm not an apologist for Trump, so
but so many Canadians are, especially the right wing, and yet we have surrendered. So much.
I don't hear that. I talk to a lot of right wingers. I don't hear too many of them being apologists for Trump.
Oh, you do in Southern Ontario. Oh, it's Canada's fault that we're in this because we should have done this. We should have done that. It's no wonder Trump did that. You hear it down here all the time, especially in Southwestern Ontario.
Well, I mean, there are some things that Canada should be doing, don't you think?
Oh yeah, no doubt. There's some things that should be doing, but enough to surrender our sovereignty to erase that border? I don't think so.
No, I really don't think too many Canadians are up for that, and the public opinion research suggests that 90% of Canadians have no interest in becoming American.
Yeah, so they say.
Well, I can only go by what the pollsters are saying when they go out in the field and ask 1,000 people, sir.
Yeah,
but I do find it.
You should hear what they say on the radio.
I guess what I do find strange is why people on the left would vote for a guy like Mark Carney.
Honestly, I thought Carney would have made a better conservative myself. I'm sort of surprised he did go for the Liberals.
Like, here you have, former chair of a $1 trillion asset management company, big, huge investment company that you would think would represent everything that progressives or left-wingers would think about greedy capitalists or greedy corporations. And yet, for some reason, a lot of people on the left think Mark Carney's on their side.
Yeah, but the thing is,
this is a company that has business operations all over the world. I mean, in some of the darkest, seediest places in the world.
But the Liberals aren't really left wing. The Liberals are the party of the big corporations, the SNC Lavalins. They're the people that.
Yeah, and yet what we are seeing though is this stampede of support fleeing the New Democrats and going toward the Liberals.
Yeah,
when you have a guy was the chair of an investment company that has been accused of corporate tax avoidance, hiding billions of dollars and hundreds of offshore tax havens, doing business deals with Jared Kushner, helping Elon Musk buy Twitter, doing business with the Qataris, doing business with China, like all of this stuff.
Yeah, true. Like personally, I feel disenfranchised. I do not like any of our federal parties. I miss the old federal PC party, which in my mind was sold out by Peter MacKay to the Reform Party. I miss the days of Brian Mulroney in those. I honestly do.
Okay. Well, but under the Conservative Party and Stephen Harper, the Conservative Party won seats in every province all across the country, sir. To say that it's, the Reform Party and a Western protest movement, it hasn't been that in a very long time.
For a long
but thank you for your call. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it, Sean. Let's go with Stay in Kitchener. Take a call from Jay. Hello, Jay. Hello, Jay.
Sure.
Hi, Jay.
Well, just wanted to give a recommendation to the fellow who was talking about the CDs that he has. If he doesn't know what to do with them, if he lives near, say, a retirement home, I know a lot of retirement homes still have DVD players in the main, like the.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Jay.
But also, if he goes to the thrift stores, like the thrift, they would also take them.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Both good recommendations, Jay. Hope you're well these days. Got to run. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. We're in the home stretch here, but still time to fit you in at 1-833-668-2577 on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Steve in Calgary's on the Friday free-for-all Talkback. Steve, what's on your mind? Hello, Steve. Hi, Steve.
All right.
Hi, Steve.
Is that me?
That would be you. Yeah.
My name's Dave.
All right, Dave.
No.
Dave,
Okay.
Steve, Joe, Jim, whatever it is. Let's get it going. What's on your mind?
Just not late for supper, please. Well,
okay, Dave. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay.
No problem. Hope everybody's doing good today. And I tried calling in the other day when your phones were really acting up and talking about Trump and all the rest of that. And
yeah.
I think that Ford has the right idea in adding tariffs to on the energy exports to the U.S. But I think Quebec has a lot of exports into electricity exports into the U.S. and I think they should follow suit.
Yeah.
I believe that Western Canada, Alberta in particular, exports about 80% of their oil down into the U.S.
That's 4.5 million barrels a day.
Yeah, and send it back to us. Well, and I mean, they, all the rest of the refineries in Canada import a lot of oil out of the U.S. And I think Alberta should just, either put a tariff on it, leaving Alberta, going down to the States, or just not send it to the States and send it to the other refineries that are importing U.S. Texas
part of the problem with that, Daniel Smith has warned about consequences of that, because if you look at the pipeline network, if you cut off the oil, I mean, the pipeline goes through the U.S. before it tracks back north into Canada. So if you did that, there would be massive fuel shortages in Ontario and Quebec. Like the likes of which we haven't seen since like the OPEC crisis in the 70s.
In 72. I remember that. Yeah. And then
it's easier said than done.
Yeah, well, and then take a big toll booth and set it up just north of Haines Junction up in the Yukon, and put a toll road going into Alaska. And
I mean, this is one of the things that Premier Eby is doing with his new emergency powers that I'm not a big fan of, but that's one of the things he's going after. He's going to raise tolls on truck travel that goes through British Columbia up into Alaska. He's going to charge them big bucks.
There's a lot of that. I used to be involved in that, and
okay.
And there's the tourist traffic that goes from the lower 48 to Alaska in the summer is unbelievable. It's like I said, there's times when there's like a vehicle a minute going by up there, and yeah, I think there's a lot more that Canada can do to stand up for itself.
Fair enough, Dave. Thank you. Good to hear your call today. Pierre Poilievre is making some remarks right now about the swearing in of Mark Carney as the Prime Minister, the unveiling of the new cabinet today. This is live.
Tom Pitfield are now top Carney advisors. They were in attendance today, not even hiding that they're still the ones running the show. The same people who ran Justin Trudeau are now running Mark Carney. Carney's chief of staff, his Liberal chief of staff, is a former Trudeau minister forced to resign for many scandals, including lying about moving Paul Bernardo out of a maximum security prison. You see, Mark Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. He thinks that a little bit of cosmetic surgery will allow the Liberals to disguise who they are and make people forget what they did for 10 years in order to elect them to a fourth Liberal term. But it's the same Liberal gang with the same Liberal agenda, the same Liberal results, and the same Liberal promises of the last 10 years. Only they want you to be fooled, and they want to take 4 terms. Carbon tax Carney will try later today to pull another fast one. This one's going to be very sneaky, very sneaky. I call it the carbon tax con job. I told you this was going to happen, by the way. Don't say I didn't warn you. He's going to hide the consumer carbon tax for 60 days. And if he's reelected, he'll bring it back bigger than ever with no rebate. Let's be clear. He says that the carbon tax he intends to bring in after the election will be a, quote, shadow carbon tax. And we know that he loves carbon taxes because he publicly advised Trudeau over the last 5 years to raise the taxes even more. But here's what I've got. This is the Liberal carbon tax law. This law cannot be eliminated unless Parliament resumes to vote it down. Mr. Carney could have asked Trudeau to do that months ago. Mr. Carney could have reconvened Parliament today to vote this law down, but he won't. He will keep the carbon tax law in place even while he temporarily hides the carbon tax from the gas pump for 60 days leading up to the election. And after that election, if God forbid he were reelected, there would be a bigger carbon tax than ever before, because Carney would no longer need your vote, but he'd still need your money. Canadians know that over 10 years, the Trudeau-Carney Liberals doubled the debt, doubled housing costs, and doubled food bank lineups. They've made us weak facing the Americans. Giving the Liberals a fourth term will not change any of that. If you cannot afford food or a home after 3 terms of Liberals, nothing will change after 4.
Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, and his response today to the swearing in of Prime Minister Mark Carney and the unveiling of Mark Carney's cabinet. 20 members of that cabinet were members of Justin Trudeau's cabinet as well. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.